Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the garage with Andy the Gabby Cabby for another edition of the live show. I hope everyone is well today. I hope everyone has got good plans for the weekend. I don't know what the weather's like where you are. It's okay down here, just a bit on the chilly side. I have to apologise first and foremost if I sound a bit throaty or anything. I think I've got a case of the man flu I'm trying to get rid of, and there seems to be a bit going around at the moment. Anyway, without further ado, let's get on with it. This is the thumbnail for this live stream, Stop Digital ID, and you can see there a picture of a letter, the actual petition, and my boat race pointing very seriously looking at the camera. Stop Digital ID. Now, before we go too far into this, I want to put this on the screen here. This is a link to the petition. And also, I'm going to put the link to the petition in the actual chat. So if anybody hasn't signed it, you can do so live while we're all watching this. It's very, very important you understand that we need to get as much blowback on this situation as possible. And that's something that we're going to talk about very much today. Now, before we go any further, let's have a look and see how things stand, shall we? 1,817,110 signatures at the current time, and that is climbing and climbing and climbing. You can see it going up there, and we will check again in a little bit later. And it is vitally important that you understand this. There are many people out there that say, "Oh, petitions do no good," and they will ignore petitions. What you have to understand is we have the right to petition the government under the English Bill of Rights, 1688. The process goes, if the government doesn't listen, you then petition the monarch, the crown. Why people aren't doing this, I don't know. And then if the crown doesn't listen, we're left with very little alternative. So these petitions need to work. They have to work for the sake of peace and harmony, and the government has to listen. We need to make them listen in as peaceful way as possible. But we'll come back to that in a little while. For the uninitiated, what is this digital ID? This is the kind of layout you have, what they're talking about, an app on the phone with all of your information linked to it. It's going to cost an awful lot of money. And, they hope to get it in place by the end of the next parliament. And it's really caused a lot of controversy already, a lot of blowback. And what you've got to think about is that they've had this in the works for a considerable amount of years, because if you look at how technologies come along over the last 20 years, for example, we've all been more reliant on one of these. This is what is happening. Okay, they get you reliant on systems. They get you reliant on things where they can conveniently slip stuff in. There is an organization that was talking about this and laying the groundwork in 2015, I think. I think they're called D5 or something like that. I'll have to look it up, but I was made aware of them last night. And also, of course, you got Tony Blair. And here's a post of him talking 2 years ago to the World Economic Forum. Tony Blair asserts the importance of digital ID. In the end, you need the data. You need to know who's had the small prick and who hasn't, for reasons to do with healthcare more generally, but certainly for more of the planned stuff, you've got to have a proper digital infrastructure. Now, that screen dump alone should tell you everything that you want to know about this situation. They want complete and utter control over, well, every existence in the country. You know, they want to completely control every aspect of your life. That's what it's all about. Now, very crucially, this is what Keir Starmer said.
And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that.
It's as simple as that, he said. As simple as that. So what he's basically saying is, you're going to do this or you're not going to be able to work. And if they're already saying you're not going to be able to work, you think of all the other things that they could tie into this monstrosity. You know, the amount of control they can levy over your everyday life with this monstrosity. It beggars belief. It really beggars belief. Now, they have tried this before. This came up earlier, and I'm indebted to Daniel Shen Smith, the black belt barrister, who pulled this up in his video on this subject earlier, and it's well worth another appraisal. This is the Identity Cards Act 2006, and as you can see, it's repealed. The whole act, all of it in its entirety, gone. But you have a list there of everything that they were planning to do, or all of the different bits and pieces they were planning to slot into this and try and enforce this on the general public. It's so complicated. But if that act is there in its, I suppose, skeleton form, even though it's in a repealed state, they do have the basis of something to go by, don't they? So they could revisit it. Now, I'm going to put a link to that act in there so you can see that. You can read that at your leisure to get an idea of the kinds of things, the kinds of areas that, you know, they want to go down with something like this. Again, it is absolutely horrific. Christine Ayres, I just spotted you in the chat. Good to see you. Not seen you about in a while. Hope you are well. Now, reaction is important with all of this, reaction. And I want to go through a couple of things. Now, if you have a look here, this is Mike Tapp. I like to think of him as the public relations officer for the Labour Party. Obviously, that isn't what he is, but every time they have something, he's always put in front of a TV camera to spew out some high-level bullshit about the Labour policy. Digital ID will help us shut down illegal employment, taking away a pull factor. It also makes everyone's life easier. It's time to modernise. Well, let's break this down. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, those people are still going to come into this country. They will not be stopped because there's no hunger for it to be stopped. There will always be, dare I say it, black economy with regard to employment, cash in hand kind of thing. It will happen all the time. And the more you try and impose a tax scenario, the more you try and impose any kind of scenario on the public, that is going to intensify. It won't make people's life easier. What it will in fact do is enable a situation where it gives the government a mechanism by which they can assert more and more control over the populace. It's as simple as that. No ifs, no buts. That's what's going to happen. Now, have a listen to what Nigel Farage has to say.
So the Prime Minister says we must have digital ID. That's the way we'll stop illegal immigration. Well, think about it. Germany has ID cards, strict ID and checks. It's made no difference at all in Germany, and nor will it here. All that digital ID will be is a means of controlling the population, of telling us what we can and can't do, of fining the innocent. And didn't we see it all when we had the pandemic, when you had to have vaccine ID to travel, to do various things? Did that stop the COVID pandemic spreading? Did it hell? All it did was put cost and inconvenience on everybody else. I also worry about massive data banks being held by the government, being hacked by foreign governments, by private companies, by criminals. I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do, what we spend, and where we go. And we, in Reform, are wholly opposed to it in every single way.
Controlling what we spend, what we do, and where we go. This is the whole point of the entire thing. No matter what happens, it cannot be allowed to happen. End of. And we have to, at the end of the day, these people represent us. They are there to air our grievances in that house. And this is a major grievance. Let's hear from another Conservative MP, Roger Gale. He is a local MP. I'll just hide the petition link for a second. In a neighbouring constituency, bang next to where I live. My immediate response is that while I will, as always, study any proposed legislation with care, I am not minded to support the mandatory introduction of such cards. I cannot see that, aside from many other issues of concern, such cards will make any impact upon the employment of illegal migrants that they are designed to address. They've not done so in France, where ID cards are already mandatory and where an underground economy thrives. This is the point. These things will always thrive. And there is no reason to suppose that ID cards would have any greater impact in the United Kingdom. That said, this is a complex and emotive issue, and one that I believe deserves better than a knee-jerk reaction. He's kind of right and kind of wrong there. The substantive reply that I shall forward to all of those who are my constituents, who have afforded me the courtesy of providing addresses and postcodes, will, prior to any debate in the House, seek to address the matter more thoroughly. You know, knee-jerk reaction, yes, we are all horrified by what this is and what's proposed. We've seen it coming a mile off. We have, and we're all, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that. I mean, just as a reminder, you know, this is going up all of the time. While nearly 2 million signatures is an awful lot, this needs to be 10 times more. It needs to be 20 million, 30 million, 40 million. No matter who you're with, your wife, your husband, your son, your daughter, your father, your mother, your grandfather, anybody that's got an ability to sign this petition, bloody well put it in front of them and get them to sign it. This needs to be massive, 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 massive. I can't emphasize it enough. So, I mean, you can see the numbers creeping up there. My friend Clown Worldwide T on YouTube is actually doing a live stream where he's keeping a very close eye. Talk of the devil, here he is. Just did a batch of 17 FOIs for top 20 surnames of all staff in different councils and police forces, etc. They're all very foreign. Yes, that's another thing for another time, but absolutely correct. He's doing a steady live stream on that, watching the progress of it. So it is wonderful. Now, what can you do? You know, people lose their faith in politics. They lose their faith in policy. And to be quite honest, I don't blame any of you. I feel exactly the same. I think they're all utter garbage, really. And this is just a symptom of it. But we've got to do something. We've got to push, push, push. And there is historical precedent for this as well, which I'll come to very shortly. Let's have a look at Rupert Lowe. As an MP, I will not comply with digital ID. I just won't do it. And I hope many millions of British men and women will join me. Send a message to Starmer. Share this graphic absolutely everywhere. I will not comply with digital ID. That's absolutely correct. At the end of the day, we can identify ourselves in numerous ways. It's, you know, who is it down to identify yourself? Is it down to the state to identify itself? Or is it down to the subject to identify itself? That is a question I have, which I will always have until somebody answers it. Now, there's a letter that Rupert's drafted. Dear Prime Minister, we are writing to register our profound and passionate opposition to your reported plans for a compulsory UK-wide digital identity scheme. Such a policy would represent an unprecedented level of state control over British citizens. This is a fundamental change to the relationship between the individual and the state. It's dangerous, intrusive, and deeply un-British. By the way, I'm English, not British. It risks building the foundations of a surveillance state. That's exactly what it will do. That's where it all starts, one that will inevitably expand in scope over time. We urge you to abandon these plans immediately. At the very least, you must commit to bringing any proposal before Parliament for full scrutiny and a free vote, and to fully consult the public before attempting to impose such a drastic measure on a reluctant country. The British people do not want this, and the British people do not need this. Compulsory digital ID would mark a dangerous and permanent shift in the balance of power between government and governed. We will oppose it at every stage. Now, there is a very small collection of signatures or small collection of names of MPs on the bottom there. Gavin Williamson, Rupert Lowe, Jim McMurdoch, James McMurdoch, Adrian Hussein, Jim Shannon, Peter Bedford, a small collection. Now, to have any impact, to have any political impact, that needs to get bigger and bigger and bigger. We need as many names on that list as possible. Now, what you can do is lobby your member of parliament. If you haven't done so, email them now. Be respectful. Don't give them any garbage. Don't give them any nonsense. Email them now and say, will you support Rupert Lowe's letter? Will you, do the right thing here, get behind this and stop this in its tracks before it starts? Now, my local MP, unfortunately, is a Labour MP by the name of Polly Billington. This is her website, and it's very easy to do. I've already done this before I came online. You literally find the contact link. Most of them will have a form of some kind. There's Polly's there, and I've emailed her and I've given her my details, and I've said, will you support Rupert Lowe's motion to stop this in its tracks? If you haven't done it, do it. As many MPs everywhere, by as many people as possible, need to have this put in front of them. And again, it must be done respectfully, it must be done civilly, it must be done politely, because otherwise it'll just give them the excuse they need. So it has to be done in the correct way. So, let's get these people lobbied. Now, it's very important, and I spoke about historical precedents earlier. Has this kind of thing happened before? The idea of an identity card has been in our society before, and I roll forward to World War II. In the late 30s, an Identity Card Act was introduced. So every single person within Britain had an identity card. During wartime, you could argue for security's sake, yes, that's probably a good idea, although they were very open to forgery and everything else. There's a very important case I want to share with you now, and a very important individual called Harry Wilcock. I must admit, through my ignorance, I had no idea who he was until I read up on him. And I want to share this article with you. Again, it's important you understand. Now, Clarence Harry Wilcock, his full name, was a British Liberal Party activist and a dry cleaning firm manager. He's best remembered for being the last person in the United Kingdom to be prosecuted for refusing to produce an identity card, a wartime requirement introduced in 1939, but it was continued post-war by the government of Clement Attlee. Well. Now, Wilcock was born in 1896, so you can see this goes back quite a considerable number of years. There's a little bit of biographical information there, including the fact he served in the army during World War I. He was active in Liberal politics, a councillor and magistrate in Horsforth, then stood for Parliament as candidate in Barking in 1945 and 1950, coming third at the first exceeding 12.5% of the vote, at which his deposit was refunded. At the time of the events which gave rise to Wilcock versus Muckle, he was the manager of a successful dry cleaning firm in London. Now, with the actual legality of it, Wilcock versus Muckle, here is the actual text to explain exactly what happened. And again, it's important you understand this. Compulsory identity cards had been reintroduced in World War II under the National Registration Act 1939. After the war in 1945, the Attlee government, and again, it's important to understand what political affirmation the Attlee government was, chose to continue them. On the 7th of December 1950, Wilcock was stopped for speeding in North Finchley, London. A police constable by the name of Harold Muckle asked him to produce his ID card, and at that, Wilcock refused. He said, "I am a liberal and I am against this sort of thing." Muckle gave Wilcock a form to produce his card at any police station within 2 days, to which Wilcock replied, "I won't be producing any police station and I will not accept your form." He then threw the form on the ground. Wilcock failed to produce the form within this time and was prosecuted under the aforementioned National Registration Act 1939. To the Highgate justices, he argued that the power to require the production of such a card had lapsed when the state of emergency which led to the passage of the Act had expired. The justices rejected this but gave him an absolute discharge. Separately, he was fined 30 shillings for speeding. He appealed the guilty but no reprimand verdict to the High Court by way of case stated, meaning the bench agreed a certified point of law had arisen. So that's what case stated means, when a point of law has arisen. Again, that's very important going forward for this and many other things. The verdict was upheld. A majority of the court, Lord Goddard, Jenkins, Hilbury and Linsky against Evershed, Devlin and DeBell, held that the Act remained in force as no auditing council had specifically terminated it. However, Lord Goddard was critical of the government. Now, this is very important, and, you know, this could have an impact later on, and I'll highlight this. This Act was passed for security purposes. Very important. It was never passed for the purposes for which it is now apparently being used. To use Acts of Parliament passed for particular purposes in wartime, when the war is a thing of the past, except for the technicality that a state of war exists, tends to turn law-abiding subjects into law-breakers, which is a most undesirable state of affairs. Further, in this country, we have always prided ourselves on the good feeling that exists between the police and the public. Ha! Well, that's not the case anymore, is it? And such action tends to make the people resentful of the acts of the police and inclines them to obstruct the police instead of assisting them. For these reasons, I hope that if a similar case comes before any other bench of justice, they will deal with it as did the Highgate bench, and grant the defendant an absolute discharge, except where there is a real reason for demanding sight of the registration card. The court dismissed the appeal, but did not award costs against Wilcock. Now, in the aftermath of this, and it's very important, there was an aftermath that was addressed. Wilcock became well known, and he founded the Freedom Defence Association to campaign against ID cards. In a publicity event, he tore up his own card in front of the National Liberal Club, inspiring in April 51 a similar action for the press outside Parliament. The party's stance to the campaign was soon cast as half-hearted, possibly as he was aligning with the Free Trade wing. The issue of ID cards was left out of his manifesto. Defeating the Labour, this is important, defeating the Labour government in the general election of 1951, the Conservative government of Winston Churchill put to the conference abolition to set the people free. In the words of a minister on the 21st of February 52, it was announced in the Commons that ID cards were to be scrapped. This was a popular move, but against the consensus of the police and the security services. So there you go. Because of the actions of one man, because of effectively a David versus Goliath, they were scrapped ultimately. So, I mean, you can see here 1,828,924 is climbing, it's climbing, it's climbing. So that just shows what the actions of one man can do in his historical precedents. So this can be stopped, and it has to be stopped, because you've got to keep thinking that if you allow this to happen, everything is tied in. Everything is tied into it. Control of your whole life. That's where it will lead. Can't be allowed to happen. Now, talking of Bill of Rights and our rights overall, I just want to refer you to something that the English Constitution Society has done. And it's very important. This needs talking about. This is a version or a draft copy of a digital Bill of Rights for the protection of individual privacies and freedom. Now, I've said before that the English or England tend to get ignored, tend to get swept under the carpet because there's an awful lot of law, there's an awful lot of constitution that can solve many of our problems that they don't want to be solved. So they want to tear England up as an entity. That's the ultimate aim. Now, let's have a look at this Bill of Rights. Prohibition of digital currency. The use of digital currencies that allow for the tracking and monitoring of transactions is prohibited. Right to digital identity. Every individual has the right to control and protect their digital identity. Prohibition of harmful digital technologies, including the aforementioned digital ID. The right to privacy. Every individual has the right to privacy. Right to digital due process. Prohibition of data misuse. Right to informational self-determination. Every individual has the right to control the use of their personal data. Prohibition of digital surveillance. Right to encryption. Prohibition of harmful artificial intelligence. Principle of individual sovereignty. Right to digital literacy. The use of psychographic profiling and targeted advertising to manipulate individuals, prohibited. No government or non-governmental organisation, charity or otherwise of like nature can interfere with the international human rights of self-determination of a country and its people by digital means or other. That is a draft digital Bill of Rights, which, as I said, was drafted, penciled out by the English Constitution Society, and it's very important that people understand the solutions to our problems are there. Now, I'll put a link to that, and please share that around as well. It's important that this stuff gets around. Graham Moore of the English Constitution Society, a lot of parties won't talk to him because he's pro-England, and they know that it will solve a lot of the problems we have. And Dean James says rightly there, English constitution clashes with what Starmer is doing. That's right, including this. That's why they want to destroy England. That's why they want to destroy England. Think about it. I've had conversations with members of Advance, and I've said, you need to listen to Graham Moore. And I've had somebody say that they're willing to listen. They're willing to have a chat with him to see how this can all be, intertwined, because there's an awful lot of laws, particularly what Starmer's done, which are rubbish. Blair, rubbish. They all need chucking out. There's at least 20 different laws that just need to go. Now, I'm going to go through the comments. Before I do, I just want to pull this up on the screen. This is happening tomorrow in Leigh-on-Sea, Essex. Graham Moore is going to be there, and it's going to be a seminar about the English Constitution and common law and how it can be used to protect you from exactly what's going on at the moment. I'm going to be there. I bought my ticket. I'll be leaving for Essex about 10:30 in the morning to get up there. Get there for 1:30 if you can make it. It's 2 till 6:30. I'll be there for that duration, and then I've got to nick off. But, if you're in the Essex area or you're able to get there, please, please, please consider doing it, because it'd be such an information-filled day, very educational. you know, really, really great. So something to consider. And you can follow Graham Moore on Twitter, English Exit, and you can support him on there. Now, another quick look at the petition. Let's share this again so we can see exactly where we are now. 703 signatures. That'll be on 2 million by the end of the day. I can guarantee it. 2 million by the end of the day. You watch. Now, if you haven't done so already, please, everybody, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this everywhere. Some important information and some views from different figures. And particularly, as I said, if you haven't done so already, even if you haven't faith in the process, lobby your MP. Get as many people as possible to lobby their MP. I want to see more names on Rupert Lowe's letter. Has to happen. Has to happen. Right, comments time. Let's see what you've got. Terry Phillips, the only thing that will stop the boats is the Navy, not an idea. Correct. Turn them around, send them back. That is the only thing that will deal with that situation. This is for the birds. What they've done, they've created a problem so they can shoehorn in what they call a solution, which actually isn't a solution at all. Remove this tyrant as soon as possible. Andrew Rossiter. I think that feeling is spreading, Andrew. I think that feeling is spreading. Tim H. Put it up. Leftist millionaire, Tony Blair and Starmer. Sideways. Absolutely. It's Tony Blair who started this idea. And Starmer's obviously followed it through. But as I showed you with that historical case, this kind of thing has been going on for years. Really, Robbie? Really? Can you send me information on that? I have an email address. I'll put that on the screen if I can find the right button to push. No, hang on. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put my email address in here. There you go. That's my email address. If you've got any information like that, that'd be very useful to actually have a look at. Hi all, just been watching Jeff Taylor. Yes, Jeff is in Newcastle. I think Liam Tufts is in Newcastle as well. It's the official launch day of Advance UK. I was actually invited up there by Edward of Advance UK, Edward Oakenfall, but because of my work schedule over like the next couple of days, I've worked it so I can get to Essex and then get to my customer at Stansted tomorrow night, but I couldn't work it to get up to Newcastle. Gutty, because I would have been there, but there will be other events, I'm sure, and I will get to them. But yeah, check out Jeff afterwards. HZ, it will get hacked and the Goober man will sell our info. It'll be a disaster. It'll be a complete cock up from beginning to end if it ever takes off, but we need to make sure it doesn't. We can't be complacent with this. In Anna Moonchild, keep signing the petition. No digital ID. Absolutely, keep signing it. We'll have another look at the end. We need to keep pushing this thing. Push, push, push. Dean, they're really going to have problems getting this ID cards off the ground as it clashes with GDPR regulations. Correct. I mean, if you look at the European Convention of Human Rights, there's plenty in there where you could argue this is against it. I'm not a fan of the ECHR because we have an English Bill of Rights. Equally, it's against it. Both cases. So, you know, you would need a lot of time and to try and shoehorn in and try and mess around with a lot of law that you really can't mess around with to try and push this through. It'd be very difficult. We should all just piss and moan online. That'll fix it. No, Brian, we don't piss and moan online. We try and do something tangible, something meaningful, which is exactly what I've been speaking about for the last 34 minutes and 57 seconds. But I get you. It does feel like that sometimes, doesn't it? Pissing and moaning online. They will steal the information and sell it. Absolutely, Dean. Something will happen nefarious somewhere, a data leak or whatever. You know it. Pull the Ford. Why does Starmer say it's free when it's taxpayers' money going to fund it? Well, of course it is. You know, it's got to be paid for somehow. And you've got to wonder, I mean, the whole idea of income tax was first created to help pay for the Napoleonic campaigns. So what's it being used for now? I would love to know. I really would. And, you know, this is one of them. Our hard-earned getting spaffed up the wall. Jackie Gummer, Tony Blair's son, owns a company that's going to supply the IDs. I want to know more about that. If you can let me know, you and the other person that has, that would be great. Very much appreciated. Muffin, they made me have an appointment for the government and I'm scared to take it off. Please, can everyone take care? Thank you, Andy. You explained it to me. No worries, Muffin. Appreciate that. You take care of yourself as well. This is just going to worry people. Christine, June, Palaz, but I swear it was at 1.8 this morning at 8 a.m. Then they rolled back the numbers. Very dodgy. I've seen that in petitions before where the numbers roll back. The problem is with the petition, and I don't know whether it's by design, there's a two-part process. You sign a petition and then you have to go into your email to click on a link to then verify your signature. And I do wonder whether some people sign it and think, oh, that's it, job done. It then times out and the numbers roll back. I do wonder whether that might be the case. But it's worth anybody like Clown World YT, who is keeping a very close eye on things, whether it's worth them looking at that and trying to catalogue, it'd be right up his street, whether the numbers do fold back or not. In which case we have a problem with our petition system, and then you should petition the Crown. That's very important that people understand that. You petition government. If they don't, you petition the Crown, the monarch. Christine, the law says they have to give you enough money to live off. They can't force people to have an ID they don't want. Absolutely, there's nothing there that says they can. You know, that earlier act I showed you, which is has been repealed. It's horrific. If you go through and read some of what they were planning, absolutely horrific. We've got to stop all this advance splitting if we want to get rid of this digital ID. As Reform don't want digital ID, advance can wait. I think realistically, I mean, I have big problems with Farage, as I've well documented on this channel. But I think realistically, if there was a general election in the very imminent future, let's face it, Advance aren't going to have 600 odd MPs to contest every seat just like that. You've got to go with the best option to get Starmer out. And if there was a general election tomorrow, like it or not, and I say that through gritted teeth, it's Farage. But, you know, long term, and, you know, it's got to be Advance, because Farage, particularly with who's coming over to Reform, in my view, it's the Uni Party under a different name. It doesn't sit with me. But the priority is to get that communist, lefty, horrible fascist bunch, aka Labour, out. You know, out. And I'm going to upload something. And this is something else that we need to enforce. We need to get people talking about this, because by their very nature, you know, Labour, where they came from, who assisted in their formation, have got communist overtones, socialist overtones. And this again is English law here. And it says any civil servant may be subject to a purge procedure and positive vetting if it's found they have any communist or fascist associations. This is the other reason they want to destroy England, because if you get rid of common law, if you get rid of English law, then that also gets rid of your ability to remove permanently the Labour Party or anything to do with them. They know exactly what they're doing. People need to wake up to this. Little G, we've got to stop all this advance. Yeah, we've had that. I hope I've addressed that. Dave Richardson, but the illegal ones don't want to work. They're only here because we pay benefit. As soon as they land, They're looked after, completely. And you look at all of these new homes that are going up everywhere. Who's going to end up in them? There's a site of a former military barracks in Canterbury, about 20 minutes, half hour from me, and that's all houses. That's all been flattened. Brian, Palantir is if I said that right, is the US company involved in these ID cards, connections to the CIA and the recent 86,000 having their bank accounts frozen in Vietnam. Yeah, that was the story, wasn't it? All those poor people in Vietnam losing their bank accounts. It's all tied in. It's all tied in. Alicia's Mindful World. We don't know the man of petition. If you're a pre-tributary, no matter where you are with your eschatological view, we're definitely experiencing the birth part. I'm not sure what that was regarding, but thank you very much. Do get some comments in there. A couple more. Peter Small, Labour will have full control over you by the next election because of Part 1 and Part 2 pass. This is why Part will pass. That is why we have to keep bashing away at this all the time. Digital ID will be used to vote. They will have full control over results. And again, the English Bill of Rights states that things like voting, petitioning, and all this kind of thing, there can't be any legal consequence of you exercising your basic rights. This is why, we have to go down this road. It happened in an African nation too, where they decided to scrap physical cash, replace with digital money, and people were not able to use their cash anymore. I think there will always be, something underground. There's a friend of mine that's very religious that says exactly the same things as you do. Yeah, absolutely, Susan. And under English law, the Constitution, they got to be purged. They got to be purged. Now, remember, folks, here's the petition link again. Let's have a look, see how we're doing. 1,837,494. There you go. Now, share that petition everywhere. Share this live stream everywhere. Subscribe to channels like mine, Paz, Paul Thorpe, Clown Worldwide T. Anyone that's discussing this, everyone that's discussing the future of this country, get involved. Get your people involved. Get your family involved. Get your friends involved. For too long, and I mean for too long, we've had a situation in this country where we've allowed the government to beat us down. We've allowed the government to keep us squashed. So we're so disheartened. We think, they're just going to do whatever they're going to do. It is the British state against the English, the Scottish, the Welsh, the Irish, and the Cornish. It has to stop. And the only way we can help it to stop is if we all club together, stand up and peacefully say to them, we don't want this. We're not happy with what you're doing. And we've got to keep saying it peacefully until the message goes across. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, everybody. I hope you got something out of that. I'm on the road tomorrow. I will be in Essex from about 1:30 at the English Constitution Society seminar. If anybody gets to make it there, it'd be great to see you. Come and say hello. I will try and get along later with another video, see how the day's going, see how my voice holds up. And until later, I look forward to talking to you soon. Toodaloo.